Hey, welcome back this week, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. We are once again
Amanda Bressler.
I'm Nirvana Diaz.
Raymond Morales.
And it's unpaid intern.
She's back, everybody.
Yay! So we're just going to continue our theme from last week. We talked
just like
about the continued
current, yeah.
fallout.
What's become the theme of these talks?
Basically, because there's really nothing else that we can say.
Yeah.
At this point.
Well, I think
Once
it's
again, to remind you,
'cause
we
everything
wanted
just
a
connects.
different weekly topic every week, but turns out we're in the fall of Western society, so that's kind of attention grabbing.
I don't even know if it's the fall
that.
of Western
I would say
society. Maybe it's the second time it's fallen. Like, it's
I feel
fallen
like-
so many times at this point. Like, we're at fall number, 10 at this point?
I don't even know. Let's just go back to living in the woods.
If you're to count the fall of Greece, and then the fall of Rome, and then the fall of... Oh, God, there's just so many falls at this point.
Does Atlantis count? Is that real?
Is it Western?
Have we found Atlantis yet?
No.
It's not Western.
Is that considered
Well,
Western?
it was a Grecian fable passed by, like, the Egyptians, so
I
it's
guess
close.
it's Westernish.
It's close.
It's Westernish.
Close.
Sure, why not? Let's go with it.
Sure.
So we'll start with the fall of Atlantis, and then Greece, and then Troy, and then Rome, and then
Everything.
everything else that came afterward.
At
Because
what
everyone
point do we
seems
talk about Roswell? Because those aliens fell, too.
Is that a fall,
And
too?
that was in the West.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
We'll agree with that one.
It's about as real as anything coming out of the White House. So we might as well talk about it.
Oh my God.
Like right now, we're seeing online we're seeing like rumors and rumors of rumors.
Innuendos and
Yeah,
rumors and
innuendos.
An articles
Yeah.
and
Of basically
CNN is now turning to our side.
No, it's
Well,
interesting to watch CNN
the side of
switch and
truth.
flip and go from needing to defend the Biden administration at all costs to seemingly feeling like the cost is too high at this
Yeah.
point,
Yeah.
and talking about things you wouldn't think they would talk about. For example, we were just discussing an article from CNN that Biden has taken more vacation days than even Trump.
which is embarrassing.
Which is really kind of scary.
Like, who would have seen that one coming? You know what I mean?
I would have seen something like that. I would have seen like Biden just MIA because he just met grandpa's off his meds again.
Yeah, but by the time you saw him in the debates, you saw that he was too old for this.
He could barely keep his eyes
It's-
open when he
let's-
talks to the nation. What
and
makes
let's
you
be
think
real.
he can actually see what he's reading?
That's
Just
the truth.
so we're not ageist, it's not he's too old for this. It's he personally no longer has
The mental capacity to do
mental
this.
capacity,
You're right.
the
Let's
energy
not be
to
ageist.
continue
Good
down
point.
this path.
Yeah.
You could run out of steam at 32.
Right.
Yeah.
It is
yeah.
what it is, but he personally seems, after a 50-year career of fucking us over, he's now run out of steam.
Yeah.
Well, fucking the most of us over.
Well, most
Yeah.
of us.
Name
Yeah.
one thing he did as VP.
Name one thing he did
that's what I'm
beneficial
saying.
in any of his.
But that's
What
I'm
did he
saying.
do as
Yeah.
VP?
As
Honestly,
VP,
I
all
honestly don't
people
remember.
really enjoyed him for was the fact that they could make memes off of him.
Yeah, he's
And
very
then
Yeah, he was
bossy.
a meme
He,
king.
he took the fact that people were making memes off of him and all of this and all of that as like, okay, I got this. I could run for president, but it's like, let's be real, dude. You ain't got the mental capacity to do this anymore.
And the
And
only
even
reason
when
why
he
we
ran-
liked you was because we were able to make fun of you.
And he's folksy, like I said. It was cute to see him up there on stage saying, "What do you need an AR-15 for? Just get yourself a shotgun
Right.
for home defense." Like Uncle Joe was all right.
Grandpa's off
Yeah.
his meds again.
Yeah. And again, the only reason he even ran and was elected as VP was to kind of
Balance out.
Maybe-
Balance
Mitigate.
out because you can't have two black people on
Yeah.
one ticket, especially
Heaven-
that back.
well,
that
I
far
don't know
back.
that we had a full black person because isn't Obama half white?
But he
he
belongs
but he
to a
belongs-
generation that if you appear as one
Black-
thing, you
you are
only
that thing.
associate that
Yes,
one thing. Like
because people are dumb.
Kamala is also from that same generation, where
But
her
she's
mother
Indian.
is Indian
Yes.
and
But
her
she
father
comes
was
off as
black,
black.
and
And
she
she-
calls herself
Black.
only black.
And like Obama raised by his white side of his
Wow.
family, she was raised by the Indian side of her family.
So it is as they appear. That generation
Yes.
lives in this world of I appear as this. They don't acknowledge the point of their self that they don't appear as.
Don't judge
Well,
a book by its cover
I feel like
unless it's running for office.
Gen Xers
Oh,
and
Jesus.
and the millennials are acknowledging parts of themselves that they don't look like. Or you could
Yes.
even be Elizabeth Warren, who's trying to claim Native American status.
when she only has like 4%. less.
When she could
Not
say
even,
that it was
yeah.
something she felt in her heart because her grandmother was Native American, and she was
And
raised
she was
in a-
raised to believe
that she was Native American. So you're like, maybe it also, so as much as you can say it's a millennial, it's a generational thing, Elizabeth Warren was doing it. So
No,
that's to be
it's,
acknowledged.
it's a problem we've always encountered. Look at the Jean de Couleur. Look at the one-drop rule. Look at so many
Right.
racially driven legislative movements that were basically concerned with appearance sake. Because if you could pass, then you passed.
Right,
and you
passing.
weren't
Passing.
asked.
Yeah.
But if you were a little caramel complected, they suddenly wanted to know who your daddy was, etc.,
mommy.
Or
etc.,
mommy. Yeah.
etc. Like it's something we've struggled with. I make light of it just because
It's the theme of our shows.
it's the theme of our show.
to
And
be able
should-
to talk about harder topics
Yes.
in a
Where
lighter
do,
tone.
where do you fall on the paint swatch?
Yes, yes,
We're gonna hold up a couple paint swatches. Let's see,
Let's
now,
see which one you
people.
go. Are
You
more
must be at
caramel,
least
coffee,
this
or
light
dark
skinned.
chocolate?
You must be at least this light skinned to
To
run
sit
for
with
president.
us. Yeah.
And once again, there's so many rumors online about, even speaking of Kamala, that the Biden and Harris camps,
Are
which
just
our
fighting each
VP
other.
and president apparently have camps, are
They do,
now at war with each other.
Right.
Being that perhaps Biden might need to step down, as we all kind of assumed.
It's
you
become
could've-
an HBO writer's room.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Ow, 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 ow.
Like it's Game of Thrones, and we all know how that turned out.
Ooh.
Every single HBO
Don't
show.
give them Star Wars. Don't offer them Star Wars.
Oof. Jesus.
But it's true. I think we assumed at some point that Biden was going to have to step down and Harris was going to take over the reins. But I think that they figured it for the last year. I think they figured it. He was going to get 2 years in,
Not 6 months in. Not
10 months in. I'm sure they did not expect 10 months and then it being over.
I'm sure they're contacting Disney and being like, you gave us the wrong animatronic. This is not the one for the Hall of Presidents. You
Let's
gave
get-
us the wrong one.
Let's get the one that
That's
looks
The
like.
real Joe Biden is currently being like, I don't know why I'm here in the Hall of Presidents.
Let's get the one they used for
He's
Trump,
so
which kind of
realistic.
looks like Hillary.
He's so realistic. It's so good.
Yeah.
I'm a real guy. Wow, that's so good.
That's awesome.
And yet the one that is currently malfunctioning and constantly shitting itself is the one that's from the other.
Well, that sounds like Disney to a T.
Yeah.
Again, speaking of rumors, there were even recent rumors of the president's recent visit with the Pope. It went from being a live televised meeting on Italian TV to now
Not
there was
happening at
not
all.
going to be any sort of camera in the room, and there was no reason given. But rumors have passed through the forest that maybe Biden just legit pooed his pants. And that
Already.
sadly doesn't seem beyond the pale. If you would have told me
Especially not
Obama
after that
pooed his pants, I would say I need
nonsense.
proof for that. I'm going to need some
What?
evidence.
What, did he eat something? You know
the
what I
man,
mean?
The man does not seem
Did
to
he
be
have
the
a, did he
type.
have a nervous tummy?
Yeah. Did he eat some bad lactose?
Like that moment where the Daddy Bush.
Daddy Bush vomited on the lap
Grew up.
of the Japanese
What?
premier
Yeah.
or
he
What?
had
ambassador.
shellfish of some sort, and he was not okay.
They said he had food poisoning, and he basically ducked beneath the table to vomit off camera. And he ended up vomiting at least partially on a Japanese dignitary.
Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely.
And that was nice and embarrassing for everyone, and I wonder why he didn't get reelected for a second term. Can't imagine. But speaking of rumors, we face nothing but rumors in this
Nothing.
world.
Yeah,
Yes.
because everywhere you look, it's literally like no one has the exact same line.
Nope.
No one is printing the exact same story.
Nope.
And no one's willing to
and
go
no
out
one's
on
willing
the
to
limb
go out
of
of their way
truth,
to do that.
saying this is how things look for fear of cancelization
Right.
or being branded as a domestic terrorist.
Right.
Right.
Let's go, Brandon. Like
It's
there's,
considered direct domestic terrorism at this point by
Yes.
some people.
there's the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, just said, "Let's go, Brandon" is now a Trumper dog whistle, as opposed to "Let's go, Brandon" is now a release vent for however many people from whatever camp
Don't
are
like
feeling less than
Who feel-
thrilled about Biden's.
Even if you liked him in the
bona fides.
beginning, you feel like he betrayed you. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Much
It's
like
just-
Trump. Show me one thing Trump or Biden ran on that
That they
they
actually
actually
did.
carried through with. And this might be a bit early into the Biden administration
10
to
months
try to
in?
pin him to a wall.
Well, technically, they
Saying
say
he
you
hasn't
don't
gotten
have more than
things
2
done.
years of power as a
But
president.
we run in exclusive waters right now, and the man has had the House and the Senate, and to a certain extent the Supreme Court, completely on his side.
Yeah.
He could have passed any number of initiatives, any number of executive orders, any number of just anything that would have done so many of the things he ran on. He could have forgiven student debt. He could have given UBI for an emergency basis. He could have done so many things that he more or less said he would.
All the things that were
But he's done nothing.
basically gutted from his Build Back Better bill.
Right.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, you wanted this? Nope. Oh, you wanted this? None for you.
Yes.
Oh, you wanted this too? Sorry, you're not getting it.
And they're locking this
but
down
here, this
to...
is going to be $250 million or more. $1 trillion,
Yes,
excuse
trillion.
me.
And I can
And
understand.
they're locking this down exclusively to obstructionists like Joe Manchin, like Kirsten Sinema.
Right.
Where if they're able to stop this bill, that must mean they're wrong, not why haven't the squad, for instance, backed so many
We're the Demis.
bills or initiatives that they should have backed, that they said they were elected to back, raising of the minimum wage to be one, etc., etc. So many things they could have bought their not inconsiderable power to bear, and they've given us nothing.
Right.
Biden's given us nothing.
Right.
There's a lack of any sort of results to give us what they promised us. Not even what we desire. What we desire was outpacing what they offered us. And what they offered us still hasn't been brought to the light.
And when it was Trump who was doing all of this, when it was Trump who was going back on his promises,
Not giving you a wall.
not giving you a
etc.
wall, not
Whatever
giving
stupidity
you
he wanted.
whatever he wanted.
You got a fence. You didn't get a wall, you got a fence.
Everybody, including the Democrats, including the Republicans, were like hammering down on this man and saying like, look at what he's not doing for you. Look at what he's not like bringing you after what you voted him in for. But I've heard literally nobody ever say, look at what Biden is not doing. Everybody's just continuously saying, oh, he's what we need. He's what we deserve.
He
He's
got
what
us through the pandemic.
He did. Trump
We're
got
in
us
the
through
middle
the
of our fucking
pandemic, and we're here now. And he's going back on his words that he said a year ago before he was, even when he was president-elect, he was going back on his words.
Saying, I have a plan, Trump doesn't, and then here we are.
And then here we
have
are
no
with
plan.
no plan.
We're here 10 months into his plan, more or less,
The plan
as of the
to-
recording here, and the plan has been subpar.
The plan has been to take away your future, your money, and your schooling. That's the plan.
And can we talk about the fact that we live in a city like New York City? We live in New York City, so I can't speak about what's happening to other cities. The mandate is deadly for our city.
It's poison to any business.
It's
From
horrible.
Broadway to small business
It's
owners.
horrible.
Yes.
My grandmother, who's about, in her late 80s, going into her 90s, is talking about the fact that she has to tell people who come in, tell parents who come in with their parents, I'm sorry, I can't allow your child in here. They don't have a vaccine. And the parents going, well, I don't want to vaccinate my child. And my grandma has to be the one to tell them, I'm sorry,
No entry.
I can't give you
On
entry.
Broadway?
Yes.
On Broadway.
At Wicked?
This
Yes,
is a Wicked
at
show.
Wicked.
Yes, this is a Broadway show at Wicked where someone
And
has
they just initiated the fucking kid
where
vaccine.
someone has
Sorry,
to
Susan,
tell
everybody.
where someone has to tell their parent, I'm sorry that your 6-year-old, however much older, your child can't come in with you because they don't have a vaccine.
And they've just approved the vaccination.
Like last
for-
week.
Literally less
Yes.
than a week ago.
I'm simply saying, they just approved the vaccination as of the recording from the ages of 5 to 12. How long until they now mandate it from the ages of 5 to 12 before you're allowed to go to school, for instance? And then if you don't get your child vaccinated and they're not allowed in school, doesn't that open up the floodgates to your child being taken from you because you haven't gotten them vaccinated? They're not able to go to school, which is a legal requirement. And now your kid can be removed from your clutches the same way Mama Harris used to threaten and then act through taking the parents of truant children
And putting them in prison.
and putting them in prison. We run the risk of President Kamala doing quite similar.
Okay. But my thing is, everybody who's been vaccinated, self-included, everybody had minor to extreme side effects to getting the vaccine. These are full-fledged adults. You're asking 5 to 11-year-olds to take a vaccine in something that is the equivalent of what an adult dosage.
The
And what- and
preliminary
what- and what-
statistics say that it's actually less
Less?
threatening for a child than the flu.
But how do you know that if they haven't even done it yet? But how do we know what the actual... And this is all an if. This is just, like, in my head.
It's speculation.
It is speculation. But it's also, in my head, I'm thinking... This is the whole new breed of thalidomide children. This
Yes.
is a whole.
Poor
This is a
babies.
whole generation, a whole new generation that are being injected with this vaccine that only lasts 3 months now. It
Well,
only
give them the
lasts.
benefit of the doubt.
It
They
only
say
lasts
3 to
the
6.
3 to 6, 6 at most. A vaccine should be for life. First,
That's the thing
Yes.
for us. Well said.
And it should
That's
provide ability to not
and
catch
exactly.
said illness.
It's like like.
But
we
they
get the-
changed the definition of vaccination
This
and
year.
immunization
this year.
to fit big
Fit the bottom
pharma's bottom line. Yes. Precisely.
Oxycontin.
Yes.
Not thalidomide. But literally, it's just like you're injecting babies, little kids, with a vaccine that knocks adults on their asses with side effects that can last for about like a week or so. What is this going to do to kids?
And folks have often said, well, we've had vaccine
It's
mandates in the
nightmare-
past,
it's
for instance, for
nightmare-inducing.
polio and etc., forgetting entirely that the first few years of the polio vaccine were actually more detrimental to your health than the polio virus might have been. It created immunodeficiency viruses or immunodeficiency states in folks who had the vaccination.
Didn't FDR become paralyzed from the vaccine, or
Well,
just
no,
from
just polio. Just
okay.
polio itself.
Okay.
But by the same
Still.
token, we've lost to the echoes of history the fact that the first polio vaccinations, which were mandatory if you wanted to participate in society,
Right.
we've lost to history that they were dangerous for a certain amount of people.
Yeah.
We sacrificed a certain portion of our population to assuage the feelings of the majority of us. And
To
these,
make the rest of you feel safe, we're sacrificing a large chunk of our population
Yes.
for
Always
you.
happens though.
I love this.
and
I
again,
love
speaking of
I love
thalidomide,
this.
it took 5 years before they
much has
discontinued
changed.
the use of that dangerous drug. A drug that to this date there's never been the like of because it's completely dangerous
Yeah.
to ingest into your system.
Yeah.
same-
Unless you want to give birth to Flipper.
Yeah,
Aww.
the same way. Yes.
Eh,
Flipper, flipper, flipper.
the whole
Yeah.
new Free Willy.
Yeah.
Mm.
But much the same way they're
I'll
saying
stop now.
these side
No,
effects
you're not wrong.
are
I'm just going,
no, I know, but
these
the
side
the
effects are
jokes just keep coming,
impacting
but I'm
such
gonna
a
stop.
small portion of our society.
Finding Nemo. No, I'm kidding.
I
I'm
would-
done.
I would say that these vaccines are creating side effects in such a small portion of our society. You should also add to any headline that says that, comma, so far. We don't know the long-term side effects because any mRNA vaccination program that was instituted by the FDA, by these big pharma corporations, had to be terminated after phase 2 of 3 or 4 trials. Phase 2 trial had to bring a termination to the testing because the side effects were just
So bad.
incomparable to any other sort of vaccination in the entire course of human history. There's the online, basically, no sort of like stopgap solution. The online website you can put whether you've had a reaction to a certain vaccine. There were about 400 deaths ever posted off of any vaccine ever in the course of recorded history. Since these vaccinations have been introduced, there's been something like 1,500. And if there's been 400, give or take, deaths prior to these vaccinations, and now there's about 1,500, give or take, after the vaccinations, how many are not being proffered as far as tied down to vaccination rates? How many are being swept under the rug in so many ways? How many are not being reported on?
Go.
And I know from the last few weeks, I was, not in school and not being able to, do all that. But I'm in school,
Hooray.
and about
We found a loophole.
15 other kids, at least in my class, are also not vaccinated, and they have to continuously go to CUNY sites to get weekly testing.
Which I wonder if CUNY is getting a cutback, some kind of money under the table from their verified CUNY-approved
But this is-
testing sites.
This is the thing, too, is, I've gotten into debates with a few people, and they kind of continuously prove me right about the fact that it's like you're forcing people to make a choice that they shouldn't have to make. And that's the problem. And that's what people aren't seeing, is that you're forcing children, adults, and so many other people into submission to make a choice to either to make a living or to just falter.
To be in these open-air trials.
How else would you expect people to react when you are literally forcing them to make a choice and then telling them that it's not a choice any longer? You're telling them that it's just the way of life. This is not the way of life.
The CDC saying we won't know how safe these vaccines are for children until we administer the said vaccine to children.
Who wants to be a guinea pig? Raise your hand.
Again, these are the reasons we have clinical trials, which have been completely circumspect throughout this whole ordeal.
Done on fetus cells.
Right? Well, they were all of the currently available in the West vaccines were tested on fetal cell lines. But beyond that, you're supposed to have
real living human testing.
You're supposed to have human testing beyond animal testing and etc.
Yeah,
we all heard about what Fauci loves to do to animals.
Yeah, especially doggies. If you're a dog lover or a dog owner, hug your dog.
He loves his beagles.
He'll come take them. No, but it's literally that point. Like, there's supposed to be human trials. There's supposed to be you get the actual vaccine or you get a placebo.
And even in the limited human trials that existed for these vaccines, they had to be basically tampered with because the entirety of their control groups, the folks who didn't get the vaccine, so you could see how they dealt with the virus, etc., how they lived in this new plague world, the control group had to be scrubbed because most of the control group now required the vaccination in order to work. So all of these trials were now pushed to the side, no control group, because the control group also conveniently had to be vaccinated
in order to be a trial group.
And now they're saying in certain countries, like I believe it's Bulgaria, Romania, somewhere behind the former Eastern Curtain, that without proof of vaccination, you can no longer go grocery shopping.
I think we mentioned that last week.
One of those countries. But you can no longer go grocery shopping.
One of those vampire countries.
Yeah, yeah. But now they've had to institute old school open air kind of
markets.
Farmers markets.
How the people are helping
so
each
folks
other,
can feed themselves.
Yeah, that they've.
One of our greatest intellectuals, and a man I greatly respected up until recently, a man named Noam Chomsky.
The gnome.
Gnome
Chomsky.
But Noam Chomsky recently said, should we sequester the unvaccinated? Of course, he says. And what about, for instance, feeding them, making sure they can get groceries? And his quote was, that's their problem.
Oh my God.
We run the risk now of
internment camps.
Don't call it a ghetto, though.
Don't call it a ghetto. We kind of already live in a ghetto.
And we now run the risk of, because we need to appease the elderly in our society, which fair enough, it's a scary time.
Who wants grandma to die?
Who wants grandma to die?
Grandma.
But we've faced so much, potentially, yes. It's been a rough life. It's been a rough century or two. But we now face a situation where we're dooming our future to try to extend the life of the elderly. And I understand that. Who wants to live?
Isn't that a little strange, though? That
who wants to live through this moment?
Sacrificing the youth to extend the life of the elderly.
You had your chance. You had your fun.
It's not strange. It's
Even
not
then,
odd.
It's as if we now made the flu vaccine mandatory.
Is it mandatory?
No.
It's not mandatory in
exactly.
any way. But it's as if we made HPV vaccine mandatory.
Right.
There's so many things we could do for the betterment of society that we have not, because we understand that medical autonomy is
important.
Is one of the bedrocks of Western
if anything
civilization.
has taught you that, World War II has taught you that medical autonomy is important, because anyone can show up with their pseudoscience and decide that because you're this hair color or this eye color or this, that you can make an entire group of people believe that and then hunt another group of people.
Yes.
So you thought that after World War II, we're like, wait, hold on.
Eugenics might not be a
slow
thing
down
we like.
On eugenics. Let's not push this concept.
Eugenics
didn't even
seems-
stop till the 70s.
Yeah. And eugenics might seem like a smart idea until you look at the Boxer Terrier.
Yes.
The Boxer Terrier 100 years ago was far, far more robust and had far fewer health issues. Current day Boxer Terriers have
Sickly
breathing
little
issues
things.
and they're sickly. And we've interbred them far too much. So if we can learn anything from the course of history, we've learned, as I've said before on this podcast, Merrick's disease is a thing.
Yeah.
And when you take a survivable, again, let's just be cautiously optimistic and conservative in our statistics here, and say 98% of people survive COVID. Merrick's disease was something that was 100% survivable in chickens. You inoculated chickens against it for far too long. Now, if they don't have the inoculation, they will die from Merrick's disease, a formerly safe virus for them to catch. Now we run the risk of creating, out of COVID, a human Merrick's disease.
Right.
And who stands to profit off of this? Big pharma, pharmaceutical companies, and big pharma, and the people they pay off, namely your elected officials.
But it's so
Who are
strange.
public servants supposed to do your bidding, but they need to pad their pockets.
Hey, do you guys remember the Oxycontin?
I was about to say that.
Yes.
We live in a post opioid pandemic where you were like, oh, you can't trust these people. Then why are we trusting them now?
Yes.
What the heck happened? Did we just forget that happened?
There's a whole Michael Keaton series on Hulu that talks about this.
And in 10 years, there's going to be one on COVID.
Yes.
I'm telling
15
it's
to 10 years, there's going to be
it's
one on
basic-
COVID.
It's basically
And the history
foreshadowing
books
that,
are going to ask
perfectly
us why we
honest.
fell for certain traps. Fear. It's fear.
It's the
and
fear
I
tactic.
understand that fear brings you to a place where you feel
And
like
the,
you
and the
cannot
one and the
think
one to
anymore.
and the one to be the
Fear
one
is
to
the
be
mind killer.
comfortable.
It is. Fear is the mind killer for those of you who have seen Dune.
It is.
Or know Dune. Fear is the mind killer.
And it's honestly like the one, like everyone's just so desperate to be not only just to be safe,
But to go back to how
but
things
to go
were.
exactly. And I'm like, there's no
Understandably.
going backwards. You can only go forward. You
Why
can
we
only
keep living in
pedal
the trying to
forward.
live in the
And
past?
it's because
One
it's comfortable.
guy,
because
one
it's comfortable
time,
to people. Because
possibly,
it's comfortable.
one guy one time possibly had a shoe bomb, and now to this day,
You have
20
to take
years
your, you have to
plus,
still have to take your fucking shoes off when you go through what is it?
TSA.
TSA.
Yeah, it's
Precisely.
strange.
It's gross.
this is the world we live in. No
Fucking
attack on an
TSA.
American theater has
Ever
ever
happened.
happened. But yet, anytime you go into an American theater, a playhouse, you now have to have your bag rummaged through by someone who's getting paid minimum wage.
Less than minimum wage.
Yes. And this is just the world we live in.
And they just go, you're fine.
Yeah,
They don't even rummage. They just look. They just. Meh.
yeah. But that's
but
all.
it's,
fun.
but it's literally like everywhere you go now. Like you have to, like even at my place of business, you have to have both proof of vaccination and your ID. So literally at the door all the time.
And you'll notice
And I
it's-
say, can everybody have their papers out and ready, please?
Oh.
Papier pizza.
Papers, please. Can I have your papers?
And you'll notice,
We don't care about your tickets. We care about your papers.
yes, and you'll notice in any event, wherever you have to check vaccination status, it's have you had a vaccine, not have you been infected with COVID and have antibodies.
Right.
Which any fair-minded study has proven is something like 7 times plus more effective than any vaccination. You can't show previous infection as a right of entry into a place where you might buy a sandwich. You need to give Pfizer or some other big biotech company your money, your taxpayer money, to make sure you can participate in society. And society or citizenry with a subscription is no citizenry at all.
No.
You're
And
being
considering-
you're being turned into a product that can be purged at any time because you don't have enough boosters.
But
You
also-
haven't adhered to prevailing momentary wisdom enough to buy groceries. But as
Just
fun as that's been,
Real quick, as someone who has been subjected to these outlandish mandates, and as someone who has had to feel the feelings of all the people who have been subjected to said mandates, it's rough. And it's not fun, and it's not something you want to do. And as a product of your creation, everyone, I say, and excuse my language, fuck you.
Yeah.
Because
Seriously.
you
Fuck all you.
But at the end of the day, I know you profit off my pain. I know you profit off my suffering. I know you profit off anything I feel.
And I know you
So,
close my firehouses.
I must say,
And our police
thank
stations.
you. And that's why there's trash on the streets, because the sanitation people are rioting and are striking. So enjoy that smell of trash, because that smells like you.
It smells like what you've earned.
Yeah.
For those of you who did it out of fear, you have my sympathy.
Yeah.
Because I
Completely.
understand how it completely just shuts the mind down.
For those of you who had no choice, like myself, in order to make money,
Yes.
You have
you,
my sympathy.
you have my sympathy.
For everyone who knew better and did this any which way because you were like, whatever. Yeah, no.
You
No.
you can just go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Let's go, Brandon.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for this week.
Yeah.
We'll be back next week. I hope everyone stays safe and everyone's okay.
Let's see if Joe can last a week with a clean pair of underwear.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, no.
Oh, Jesus. All right, that was us. We are.
Amanda Bressler.
I'm Nirvana Diaz.
Raymond Morales.
Unpaid fucking intern.
All right, guys.
Aren't
Next
we
week,
all?
stay safe. Bye.